Things are not going too well for Xbox right now. In fact, this is starting to look like the beginning of the end. It started with Xbox games being ported to PlayStation 5. Things got even worse when we found out that Tango Gameworks, the creators of Hi-Fi Rush, a game that Microsoft had previously said was successful and met all of their metrics for success, still saw the studio being shut down, as well as numerous other Xbox studios. And now this situation somehow is getting even worse. So please go ahead and hit that subscribe button as we make our journey to 98K, because today we're looking at what is likely the fall of Xbox. And I don't mean that to exaggerate or sensationalize. This is genuinely a very grim situation for the platform, because it is more than just about a few studios being shut down. Microsoft is showing a vast level of incompetence when it comes to handling this brand, and Xbox diminishing into whatever it's about to is not of my preference. Trust me, I think we need something there in order to give Sony competition. But this situation just keeps getting worse. So recently, Xbox president Sarah Bond did an interview with Bloomberg, and they were asked about why they shut down Tango Gameworks despite Hi-Fi Rush being a success. So let's go ahead and watch this clip together, because I'm telling you guys, you absolutely will not believe what she had to say.
One of the things that was most upsetting both to Xbox gamers and to employees is that, one of the shuttered studios in particular just created a hit game, did really well on Game Pass and in terms of engagement, and won a ton of awards. Shouldn't succeeding in that way ensure the future of a studio?
One of the things I really love about the games industry is it's a creative art form. And it means that the situation and what success is for each game and studio is also really unique. Like, there's no one size fits all to it for us. And so we look at each studio, each game team, and we look at a whole variety of factors when we're faced with sort of making decisions and trade-offs like that. But it all comes back to our long-term commitment to the games we create, the devices we build, the services, and ensuring that we're setting ourselves up to be able to deliver on those promises.
That is one of the most ridiculous responses that I've ever heard. You previously said that it was a success. In fact, here is a screenshot of Sarah Bond replying to Tango Gameworks celebrating their 14th birthday, and her saying, "Here's to many more to come." This wasn't from a long time ago, guys. This was from March 1st. This was from 2 months ago. It's pretty clear that at that time, they had no plan to shut them down. Otherwise, she would not be saying, "Here's the many more to come," unless she was absolutely sadistic. And it's also really terrible that they sent her out there to say all of that without any coaching, without telling her what to properly say, how to respond to this. Usually business people are a lot better about this type of stuff than the way they just sent her out there. Just completely embarrassing, really. I mean, everything about that response was so wrong. You don't really want to say when asking why a studio was shut down is, first of all, just starting the statement with, "One of the things I love about the game industry, when you just shut a studio down and put people out of work and pissed off millions of your own fans." And then talk about the subjective nature of success when you, Microsoft, have said previously that it was a success by your own metrics, and now you're saying that it's not a success by your metrics, but then also further implying that success is subjective and not objective. So which is it? Do you have objective measures that can deem something a success, or do you not? It's quite clear that you guys are just being completely arbitrary about this stuff. There is no clear vision here, and that's because at the core, Game Pass is likely unsustainable. You have this $3 trillion company who's willing to throw money at everything. It isn't willing to keep one of their most promising studios open. We have a tweet right here from Aaron Greenberg saying, "A year ago, Hi-Fi Rush was a breakout hit for us and our players in all key metrics and expectations. We could not be happier with what the team at Tango Works delivered with this surprise release. April 2023 was a breakout hit for us and our players in all key measurements and expectations. All key measurements and expectations. We could not be happier. With what the team at Tango Works delivered with this surprise release. Boys, let's shut them down. You know what I do when I could not be happier with someone or something? I do what Microsoft does. And I immediately dispose of them, because that's what you do when something meets all of your key metrics for success. You get rid of it, because who wants to be successful? Who wants people to love them and their brand? Nobody. It is extremely debatable whether or not Game Pass is sustainable, and all of this recent evidence is showing that it is probably not. Right now, Microsoft is having an internal debate on whether they should put Call of Duty on Game Pass and how much money they will lose. This is what The Verge had to say. Microsoft has also had internal debates on whether to put the new releases of Call of Duty onto Game Pass. I understand this is a debate that has been ongoing internally for quite some time, with concerns from some that the revenue that Call of Duty typically generates for Activision Blizzard will be undermined by Game Pass. I'm told that Microsoft has also considered increasing the price of Game Pass Ultimate again. These are only considerations, so a final decision could mean we still see a future Call of Duty release appear in most versions of Game Pass. The debate internally reflects the fact that Microsoft's strategy has shifted from delivering games exclusively to Game Pass to considering bringing Xbox games to multiple platforms. Well, of course. But I mean, to anyone even thinking about this for a moment, once you get people used to getting games for virtually free with a very cheap subscription, who is going to want to pay for games again at full price? Pretty much nobody. It's a great value for the consumer, especially as video game prices are rising. $70 is a lot of money. For the consumer, if you love Game Pass, I do not fault you whatsoever. But how sustainable is it for developers when so many developers already charge full price for their games and then still aren't able to make a profit? If Call of Duty would be less profitable on Game Pass than it would be selling it at full price, then it seems to me the best thing to do is to keep games at full price. Mind you, if Call of Duty was owned by someone else, Microsoft would not have a problem wanting to put it on Game Pass, because it would not be their loss. It would only be to their benefit. Again, it's a great deal for consumers. It's also a great deal for indie developers. But for most other developers, it just is not probably a good deal. But it's this quote right here that is ultimately so damning to me about this whole situation. In an IGN article, they report, I spoke to two former longtime Xbox employees separately, and both lamented the current state of the business. One told me, prior to this week's awful studio closures, I had lengthy conversations with a bunch of Xbox's founders, and we all came to the same conclusion. It's no longer Xbox, but Microsoft Gaming. Ouch. So even according to the founders of Xbox, the brand has essentially lost its soul. So this isn't just my bias or other people's biases, which there is no console brand that I have any type of fanboyism over whatsoever, as every console manufacturer, every business, every corporation's end goal is not to be your homie, but to make as much money from you as possible. But again, I do think that we need great competition in place, because that competition is also what keeps the platforms that we play on at their best. However, Microsoft has made it clear that they have no idea what they're doing. Now, Microsoft does have one very big upcoming exclusive, and that is Hellblade 2. A lot of people love the first game and have been looking forward to this sequel. But I think the biggest red flag was when Ninja Theory's co-founder left the Hellblade 2 studio. You guys, I am 32 years old. I've been into games for a very, 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 very long time now. And if I can tell you one thing that always signals that something is about to go really, really bad, it is when right before a launch, one of the lead developers or one of the co-founders of the studio just heads out and leaves the studio. That is the ultimate red flag that something is going profoundly wrong. You know, typically a co-founder, a head of a studio, or the head of a project, these are the people who are most invested in it. To them, it's more than just money, it's also their creative baby. And so when they dip out, it's not just because they wanted to go find a different job usually. It's typically because something left them in an extreme level of dissatisfaction, and it's almost always something that's out of their control. And usually when you're at that point of the pyramid, the only thing that is out of your control are the people above you managing your studio, aka the publisher, that being Microsoft. And it's especially true when no further comment is really given on why they did it. Microsoft bought all of these studios, shut some of them down, and doesn't even really have a clear vision for where they want to go next. This is so utterly mismanaged, so utterly incompetent, and still, they really don't have a clear vision for what they want. I rarely, if ever, make any type of angry rant videos or whatever. That is not usually my style, but this pisses me off like none other, because it's more than just about the games. It's also about the negative effect that it's having in people's lives. And it is so irritating to see that a $3 trillion company is handling things like this. Microsoft, do better.